Do you ever want to dive deeper into the Bible, but you just don't know where to begin, or struggle to feel like you even have the time? When you read the Bible, do you get frustrated because you know there's so much more in there? You just have no clue how to get it out? Or maybe you want to know the Bible better, and you're looking for any resource to help. Then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Context and Color of the Bible. We're sisters. I'm Veronica.
I'm Erica.
And we love to study the Bible, and we love to help others understand it better. When it comes to our own study of Scripture, we have found that in bringing back the context of Scripture, it adds so much to our understanding. It actually adds color to the black and white pages of the text. Welcome to summer, Erica.
So it is sunny outside as we record
And
this.
it's technically May 7th as we record this.
And it is cold.
I know. I think it's like, Brian went fishing this morning. It was 36 degrees.
Oh, that
Yes.
just sounds miserable. But I bet by the time this airs, it will be better than 30s and 40s.
I hope so.
Please, Lord.
But we are starting off our summer series. We're going to do Psalms all summer.
That's good to dive in and just take the time.
Yeah.
We're going to just meditate. And
And just a shout out to our Thursday night Bible study and our Friday morning Bible study ladies that did Psalms with us. We crammed all of this into 4 weeks.
It was a lot.
It was a lot because 150 Psalms
In a month.
in a month is not easy. I know there was one lady.
One lady in my group read
Yeah.
the whole thing in the month.
Yes. So if any of the women that studied with me on Friday morning did that, let me know because I actually never asked if someone read all 150 Psalms.
But that's not what we're going to ask our listeners
No.
to do. You have all summer.
You have all summer. And when we get to it, when we actually start digging into the Psalms, we have some handouts that you will want to go to our website to get. That they'll just be in under the Psalms podcast. But just things as you're reading through the Psalms, things we've told other women to look for. So we're going to give that to you for free on the website.
Woohoo!
Yes. But so, Erica, when we went to the Philippines back in 1996,
Back in the 1900s.
yes, we're old. Do you remember what compliment we were given?
Was it mom that was giving it, or was it you and mom?
It wasn't mom.
It was you?
It was just, I thought it was you and I. Mom was not included. Sorry, Mom.
Oh, I thought she was the one.
No.
Big nose.
Yes.
We were told big nose, big nose.
Yes.
Did not seem like a compliment. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. But we were staying with missionaries, and we went to the missionaries and were like, this doesn't seem very nice. Because they told us, they were saying you have a big nose. And what we found out was that it was a compliment.
It meant you were pretty.
Yes. And so in our...
Which isn't saying much because we were a bunch of white girls.
I know.
In a third world country.
At the age of 18, when
Yes.
everyone looks great.
Yes.
In your late teens.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. When you go to another country, you often run into those things where it's like, ooh, that didn't sound like a compliment to me.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other things when we go to other countries or when people come to America. What are things that can trip people up?
Idioms.
Yes.
Totally. Our casualness.
Yes.
Like how casually we dress and talk to each other, the size proportions of our food, the fast pacedness of our cities, the bigness of our cars, our guns.
Those of you, those of you who are on social media and see Josh and Jace, the two Brits that came over this spring, they're coming this summer to Michigan again. And I've watched some of their videos because it's funny because they go, you guys like hand your credit card over to your waitress and she leaves the room. She leaves the table with it.
Yeah.
And that was just, they're like, we have been taught never to let our credit card out of our sight.
So how do they pay?
Probably just right there at the table would be my guess. But so there's just that thing. I mean, you go to England and it's fish and chips. And that's not what we call it here in America.
Fish and French fries.
Yeah. And so there's just things, when you go to another country, you expect there's going to be some barriers.
Yep.
Some things that trip you up. But truthfully, we don't think that when we open up the Bible. For some reason, we have just assumed, it's all going to make sense. I know exactly what's going to be said, and I'm going to understand all the little nuances. And yet what we're finding as we've studied, and as you've studied with us, hopefully you go, I'm missing things. And so today, before we get into the Psalms, we want to set everyone up with kind of like that 30,000 foot view of just the Bible. Before we actually get deep into the Psalms, we're going to give you an overview of the Bible. And so one of the first things when you go to a new country is a language barrier. If you don't speak English, or if you're not going to an English-speaking country, it's going to cause some issues. And so, Erica, do you want to tell us a little bit about Hebrew?
So Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, is a word poor language. I think they have like 8,000
That's what Lois
words.
Tverberg said.
That's what I thought she said. We have, I don't know even how many,
Over
hundreds?
1 million.
Over 1 million words in English. So we can be like razor sharp in our meaning and exactly what I'm trying to tell you. But in Hebrew, it's a lot more nuanced. You have to know the context to understand, because one word has several different meanings. And sometimes all of those meanings are being brought in. Sometimes they're focusing in on one. But the way you know is through the context. And that's where we get all our different translations from. Are they translating, trying to get that exact word? Are they trying to bring in a different feel? So Hebrew is actually, it's considered, biblical Hebrew is considered word poor, just simply because they have a low level of words. Modern Hebrew, I don't know. I would assume they have a lot more words.
That would make sense.
As modern Hebrew, but there's a little bit of a difference between modern and biblical. So we're constantly hitting on biblical. Obviously, if you learn modern, that will greatly help you with biblical. But think of like English to Shakespearean English.
Oh,
You can read it.
Wherefore art thou, O
Romeo, which is actually asking him why he's Romeo.
Right.
Why is he a Montague, not where is he?
Right.
That
Which
word where changed.
blows my mind.
Right, because for years, that's no clue that's what it meant. So it's the same with biblical to modern Hebrew. There are changes. So we're talking about biblical Hebrew. But it's, so when you open the scriptures, the Old Testament, you have to understand, was written in Hebrew. And so what we're reading is a translation, in some respects, a transliteration of the Hebrew.
And so that's why we do. Sometimes we will point out certain words and go, you need to know this word, because there's not always a good one-to-one correlation. For example, big word that we both love is hesed. In Hebrew, it's hesed. In English, it can be loving kindness, loving mercy,
Covenant loyalty carries this idea of devotion and sacrifice. With God, it carries the idea of forgiveness, mercy. Like, it's just this massively huge word that you really can't translate
into one English word. So that's why we do encourage people, grab different translations when you're studying, because seeing those different words the way the translators, it will help you understand a little bit more what Hebrew word is behind there. So that's the first thing. Just as we go, don't forget, we are looking at the Hebrew language. It does not translate perfectly into English. But then the next thing, when you go into a country, you have cultural differences. There are things we just know in America, like I said with the credit cards, that don't always translate well or happen in other countries. So what happens, Erica, when we enter the ancient biblical world of Israel?
Well, right away, especially in the Old Testament and what you see with Jesus in the Gospels, is they love pictures. They love images. They love stories. And so instead of like in our Western mindset, we like to give you facts. God is omniscient. God is omnipotent. And we'll give you these big words and these theories. But in the Hebrew mindset, no, tell me a story. Give me a picture. God is a rock. God is our shield. The Lord our banner.
Our Names of God series
right,
we just did.
Yeah. All these pictures, all these stories, and you're supposed to connect with the story because truthfully, who doesn't love a good story? And stories stay with you so much better than just bare facts. And so you see these images throughout the book of Psalms, throughout scripture, giving you truth, but they're painting a picture. They're telling you a story.
So with that, then, so we would say the Hebraic mindset uses images. The Western mindset would use definitions. We also, in the Western mindset, are very linear. A plus B equals C. Can you tell me what it's like in the Hebraic mindset then?
Think of a cycle, a circle. Just I'm drawing a picture. I'm drawing a circle with my finger right now as I'm telling Ronnie this. Think life and death it's a cycle. Everybody lives, everybody dies, and you are a link in a chain. And so your descendants and your ancestors all matter because you are this link connecting everybody in your family to who's come before you, to who's coming after you. And the way that really influences how we think, because when we write something down, if you write a biography or an autobiography, you're going to start with your birth and then you're going to move chronologically through your life until your death. And you think of it as a straight line and everything happens in a specific order. But in a cycle mindset, everything happens, but exactly when matters less. It's not as important. What matters is that it happened to you in your life. And so you can shift around things in the order and it doesn't matter as much. And you see this in scripture. For instance, Isaiah 6 is actually his calling with the prophet. They think that came first. But Isaiah, it doesn't start the book of Isaiah. The book of Isaiah actually starts with him as a prophet. And so you almost go back in time because it fits the book, what Isaiah is trying to teach you. There's a theme. There's something he's doing with his life story in these prophecies. So he puts his calling towards the beginning, but not at the beginning. There are other times in scripture you see where they seem to juggle the timeline and you go, wait, I thought that happened earlier. I don't think that happened right then. And that's okay. They're less interested in exactly when, an exact timeline. It's more important that it happened. And so what are they trying to teach you wherever they place it?
Okay. And then the whole time you're talking, you are using your hands. Can you tell me why your hands are important in Hebraic mindset?
Because it takes two hands to think Hebraically. And yes, I am a mover when I talk. You see this all throughout scripture. They give you these two competing ideas. God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Pharaoh hardened his own heart. Free will versus predestination. Those are the first two that came to mind, but there are
God is
others.
love. God is a God of wrath.
Yes. And so the Bible doesn't try to take and make sense of these two separate ideas. Like we in the Western mindset don't like tension. Make it make sense. Help me to understand how God can do one and the other. And the Bible is much more comfortable with living in the tension and kind of shrugging and holding up both hands going, both are true. I don't have to know how they fit together. He's God, I'm not. I can live in the tension of that. And so as you come to scripture, as you read through the Psalms, you're going to see Psalms that seem to say opposite things. And on the one hand, this, but on the other hand, that. And you know what? That's okay. You don't have to have the answers. You don't have to be able to explain it all. If the Bible doesn't try to explain it, we don't need to try either. It's okay to let both truths sit and just sit in the tension of, this doesn't make sense, but he's God and he doesn't have to make sense to me. And he's not always going to make sense to me. I've got two hands. I can hold both truths. God will make it make sense one day.
And an easy way to just, if you're writing notes, both and is Hebraic. Western mindset, we like either or.
Yes.
That's a quick, easy, if you go, don't have a ton of room for notes. Both and either or. All right. So then one of the things that's important to understand is just the education, the schooling, because as we get into these Psalms, we're going to go, oh, wait, they show up in the Gospels. They show up in Paul's writing. Can you explain to me just real quick what their schooling would be like?
I know by the time of Jesus, they basically at like the age of 5, maybe even younger.
5,
they would start them in school and you would start memorizing the book of Leviticus.
That's the first thing you're going to memorize.
Amazing. And then basically you move from there to the rest of those first 5 books and then you keep going. And if you can, you memorize the Old Testament. It is very more than likely Jesus had the entire Old Testament memorized in his humanity, not his deity, his godness. But even like the common person on the street, for the most part, they were amazingly well versed in scripture. And so you could say one word and the rest of your audience could finish out the verse and the context. You could give examples and they would be able to connect them to scripture. And so they loved, they were constantly, scripture was how they saw everything. The book of Psalms was their prayer book, their worship hymnal. It was their, like what you would listen to today on the radio for Christian worship. That was Psalms for them. They would sing it. They would pray it. It's how they viewed the world. It's how they wrestled with God, and it's how they encouraged each other. And so the book of Psalms was huge for them, but part of wrestling with scripture is debating. Because like I said, you have that both and sometimes it doesn't make sense. And so they loved to debate each other. I forget where I first heard this, but the statement is, if you have two Jews, you will have three opinions. And still to this day, my understanding is that's still so true. They love to argue. They love to debate. And a good school is actually very noisy because the student and the teachers are going back and forth, and the teachers are having the students go back and forth, and you take one side and you debate, and then the teacher flips you and you have to now debate the other side. And so debate and discussion was a common part of life for the Jewish people growing up.
And then with that, it's not that you answered the question, it's normally you answer with a question,
which I hate.
Because it really really it shows you understand and you can continue the discussion. So if you want scriptural evidence of this, go to Luke 2 verses 46 and 47 and see what it says. The teachers were impressed with Jesus.
But what did he do versus what they were impressed with?
So we're not going to take time to do that, but we're just going to keep pointing those things out. But also, so understand, as you're reading the New Testament, read those footnotes or those little links at the bottom that say, oh, this is referencing back.
And then go back and read the context.
Because if I say to our American listeners, I pledge allegiance to the flag. Truthfully, if I just say I pledge allegiance, I don't need to finish it because every American will know how to finish those words.
And what you're referencing.
And what I'm referencing and the context, what happens. You take your hat off, you put your hand over your heart. It means the flag has just walked into the room. You are standing. We are showing honor and respect to our country's flag. And so that's how it would be when they reference just a verse, either with a word or just a phrase. It's not just that verse. It's the whole chapter. So now, Erica, I'm going to throw some things at you, and you're going to tell me what the biblical worldview would be. So if our world, thin is beautiful.
Fat is beautiful.
Why?
Because that means you have enough money to eat enough and you don't have to work so hard.
Okay.
I mean, in that culture, if you're working daily just to get enough food to survive, you're not going to get heavy. You're going to be thin.
You're using those calories.
You're using them. But so if you have enough that you're actually fat or overweight or a little bit chunky, you've got extra meat on your bones, that means you're prosperous and have been blessed.
Okay. In our world, youth is attractive.
They understood that with age came wisdom. And they had a lot of respect for older people because at the very least you have lived life and you have experience and wisdom that comes with that.
And I do want to say I am taking this portion right here from Reading the Bible with Rabbi Jesus by Lois Tverberg.
Excellent book.
Yes. All right. So in our world, we question, does God exist?
They didn't question if God existed. They questioned which God was the greatest, the strongest. You know, if our two cities battle it out, whose ever God is stronger wins. If two nations battle it out, the gods that are stronger win. Israel's the first time you have a group of people coming and saying, hey, we lost. But it's not that your God beat us. It's that our God chose to let us lose because we're in sin and need to be disciplined. So that was like massive in the ancient world, that this God could actually be more powerful and yet let his people lose. Atheism is actually relatively new. It's not an old thought. It's a relatively new thought.
Right. All right. So in our world, it's all about me. I'm an individual and I have personal goals.
So remember that mindset of a cycle. Life is not linear. It's a cycle. You're a link in a chain. So you, the individual, can get lost not lost, but you find your place in your family, your community, your identity comes from who's before you and who's coming after you. And actually, it kept you grounded. It kept you in community, in relationship. So your whole mindset was supposed to be, how do I keep my family going? How do I keep my family on this plot of land so our descendants will have something? It's not just about me. It's about my family, my community, and the future.
It's a bigger picture.
Yes.
And a longer range picture.
Yes.
Okay. So truthfully, this is so me. I love sunshine. It makes me happy.
Yes. Especially in Michigan right now.
When it's
need
cold.
sun.
Yes. What's it like in the Bible though?
Well, they loved sunshine too, but they appreciated rain far more. And actually, I should say in Michigan, we don't appreciate rain as much.
Yeah.
I'm told if you go live out west or if you live in a drier state,
Probably
you
true.
actually do appreciate rain because they only had 2 rainy seasons in Israel. They have the fall rains and the spring rains. Or the winter rains. And they actually are very important. Without it, you have drought, you have famine, you have death. And so when it rained, they were so thankful. They actually had this, you would pour out this water libation to God in the temple, asking him to send the rains to provide for your family and your community. And so rain was seen as a blessing. Whereas in Michigan, we tend to go, oh, unless it's been really dry. But yeah.
All right. And then the last one, we in the West like logic and reasoning. That's how we argue. I mean, I teach logic fallacies.
That's a good point.
Kids,
you do.
you know, but we teach them how to think for themselves and we use logic and reason and evidence. What did they use for their teaching tools?
Parables and prophecy, scripture and stories. And yes, they have their own sense of logic to it, but they're less concerned with
definitions.
Yeah, theology and data and facts. They're more concerned with, I'm trying to think of how to say this. Stories. It's
easier to give a story that teaches a lesson than to just tell you, here's the lesson.
Yeah.
It sticks with you.
So they're still telling you truth. They're still dealing with it, but they're telling it in a different way.
The way they present it.
Yes.
We like 1, 2, 3, here's our outline.
Yeah.
And you can tell so much more in a story. I mean, that's why we had Shannon Popkin on.
Yeah.
Last February-ish.
Yeah.
Because she was showing us how stories can teach in a way that we can't. And stories can connect and teach other adults and adult children in a way that a lecture is not going to connect anymore.
I think that's one reason I love when Brian Van, my husband, comes on and teaches, because he has learned how to tell a good story through places I don't see it in scripture, but he can turn it into a story. And it's like, oh, that so sticks with me. Versus me just reading through it and going, okay, I think it says.
So now as we talk about the culture, one of the big things we need to remember, we've talked about this in our Deuteronomy series, is the land itself. Can you tell me a little bit about the land? You have been there, you have lived there, you have studied it because you have your master's degree in archaeology and geography. So can you use that degree right now?
Very smooth.
To tell us about it.
That's funny. So I had a professor. So I have to do this. Still cracks me up because I hated geography growing up. Like I had no clue where anything was, and now I do have a master's in. And I think God has such a sense of humor. But it made so much sense. When I got to Israel, one of my professors, Dr. Wright, love him, talked about how
Jerusalem University College.
He's no longer president of it. He retired, but he talked about how there were cats and mice. And so you would have, the cats are these nations that have the land, the area, and the produce and the people to get really big. And so picture a big cat. And then you had these other nations, and they didn't have as much land. They didn't have as much produce and people. And so they could get big, but only like the size of a mouse. And so you have cats and mice. And in the Middle East, it's like called a natural land bridge. And I wish I could draw a quick map for all of you. Like picture up and to your right is like Assyria and Babylon. And then I'm trying to think. Below them is a desert. On the right side. To the left side is the Mediterranean Sea. And in between the desert and the sea is Israel. And you go down Israel, and then to the south of Israel, below Israel, is Egypt. So you've got Assyria and Babylon and Egypt. These are all these cat nations. They can get huge. And then Israel and a lot of the Ite nations, Moabites, not Hittites, but Ammonites, Canaanites. Like these are all these mice nations. They can get kind of big, but only as big as a mouse can. And so you've constantly got, when the cat's away, the mice will play and they'll get big. And you see this during David and Solomon and Saul. But as the cats wake up and come back, they begin to stretch, and these claws, they like to fight each other, but they also like to fight, and you have to go through Israel. Otherwise, they've got to go through the desert or the Mediterranean Sea. And so they go through Israel, Egypt, Assyria, Egypt, and Babylon to reach each other. And as they're going to reach each other, they're grabbing up all these mice nations and they're eating and gobbling them up. And that's a huge part of the biblical story. I hope that made sense.
It does. So then with that, in Israel now, go a little bit more narrow now. In Israel, you have a dry area. You have a fertile area. Can you talk a little bit how that affects people? We did a little bit in Deuteronomy.
Yeah. So the farther north you are, the more rain. The higher elevation, the more rain. The farther west, the more rain. So you definitely have, like, in the north, in the Galilee is where you're going to have the farmers, the vineyards. In the south is where you're more going to have the shepherds. You know, this is where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob settled, because this is where the shepherds are. This is where David was as a shepherd. And so you definitely have these two very distinct regions that intermix, but for the most part, north is going to be more farmers. South is going to be more shepherds. And then your lifestyle is influenced. If you're a shepherd, you're nomadic and you're kind of roughing it because you don't get a lot of rain and you're trying to find constant place for your sheep to eat and get water.
You're surviving a lot more.
Yeah. Versus in the north, well, it's lush and it's green and you've got food and you've got cities and it's a little bit easier.
But with that, then, if you go back to our Deuteronomy, the whole point is Moses is saying when he is on his deathbed, essentially, is you all have to stay united. Life is going to be different, but there has to be something that unites you. And ultimately, that becomes Jerusalem.
Yes.
That is the place where God is ultimately going to put his name on. So you are going to see Jerusalem referenced throughout the Psalms, because that is where God says, here's where I am. That's where his tabernacle the temple. Here's where the temple is built. The tabernacle wasn't there, but the temple is built there. That's going to bring people in. As we've studied through Leviticus, God tells them, come back to the temple 3 times a year. That's going to keep these people who have different lifestyles united and going, we're in this together.
We're one nation.
So how else could we maybe see, we'll say this again as we get into the Psalms more, what are we going to see? How is it going to be referenced in the Psalms? It's not always Jerusalem.
The city, the great city, the Lord's city, God's city.
Zion.
Yeah.
Or just the temple, or God's house, or your house.
Yeah, those are all referencing specific Jerusalem or the temple within Jerusalem.
Okay. And then one other thing, as I'm looking, you've kind of referenced this a little bit, but tell us a little bit more about, you said each city has its own God. Can you explain a little bit more about the gods?
So the surrounding countries, all nations, whether cat or mice, all have multiple gods. And which, when I thought about this, was interesting because I thought, you know, they even have a god of the dead, because once you're dead, you're really no longer important to the other gods. So they need a god who's overseeing the dead. So you have a god of the hills, a god of the mountains, a god of the sea, a god of the flats, a god of the
fertility, god of rain.
Yes. And one god can do multiple things, but you still have multiple gods. Israel comes along and they're like, there's one God and he's over all of it.
God Most High, El Elyon.
Yes. And he, in fact, is still the God of, like, when we die, we still belong to him. He's the God of the living. And it really influenced, it was a pressure point for Israel to have one God. And they were constantly struggling. Well, are there multiple gods? What about this God? What about that God? Other gods have husbands and wives. What about our God? Does he? And so this idea of one God who oversees all of it, who's over all of it, was very new. And they were wrestling with it, trying to figure this out.
Because also with those gods, then those gods were limited in power.
Yes.
And they were territorial. So like with Jonah kind of tried to run away from God. Well, because you could.
Right.
You would leave that God's territory, and there's a boundary line essentially where that God's no longer as powerful and can't get me. So you can run away from God. So Jonah even says that in chapter 1. They talk about, well, they already knew he was running away from his God.
Which is funny because when God catches him on the sea, he's like, yeah, he made the land and the sea. I can't run away from him. And it's like, Jonah.
But I'm going to try.
Right.
But so hopefully as we've gone through this, our goal is to go, hey, if you're entering a new country, we're going to kind of be those tour guides as we enter into the Psalms and go, hey, there's some things here you could miss. Not because you're not a great Bible study student. You can know your scriptures. I'm not saying, but there's some things we just know until we study with a local or that tour guide who goes, I want to point out some things you might miss. That's what we're going to do for the summer. As we walk through the Psalms, we're going to point out some things. But so this week, what we want you to do is to go read Psalm 18. Take what we've talked through and just read through Psalm 18 and now see what jumps out at you. Like, look for what images do you see that are connected with God? What connections do you see to the land? And if you go, there's multiple gods out there, what's this God like? How is he described? How powerful is he? You know, as this is David talking about himself and his life, what kind of questions is David asking? What is David looking for? What are the emotions?
How did David feel about God and how did God feel about David?
Yes. So this is what we're going to do. Next week, we're going to we've been at that 30,000 foot view. Next week, we're going to kind of come down to like the 10,000 foot view and give you a better idea of where Psalms fits in the Old Testament. But for now, don't forget, go check out our website because like I say, there's actually, in a lot of our podcast series, there are handouts. There will be some for Psalms. I'll put them up pretty quickly so you can start reading through the Psalms. Start now. Start with Psalm 1 and read through in order because there is an order and a flow when you read through Psalms in order. You'll have the ups and downs of the psalmist that we miss when we just jump around. So thanks for joining us and come back next week.
Bye-bye.